Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us for this special summer series where we will introduce you to the HERO Project. HERO stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization and is focused on providing support for unique faith-based schools. These creative Christian learning environments, such as homeschool co-ops, microschools, and hybrid schools, are popping up all across Kansas and throughout the Heartland. The HERO Project offers continued support for this movement. I am your host, Dalena Wallace, founder of the WISE Network and president of AIM Educational Collaborative. Welcome to our summer series of WISE and Otherwise, where we will be highlighting the unique role of the church in supporting a reformation in education through the HERO Project. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of WISE and Otherwise. I have with me today, I have two Kyles with me today. I have Pastor Kyle Lammott. He is the pastor of Exodus Church. He's, is it the east side of Wichita?
Yes, it is. Yeah, on Central, almost to Andover, but we are in Wichita.
Right. All right. And then the other Kyle is Kyle Waters, who is the head of school at St. Boniface Academy. And I'm so excited to introduce both of them to our listeners today and to tell a little bit about their story. I'm just learning about it myself. So I'll just tell you what I know from the beginning. I know that I have been seeing some amazing posts out there. My friends have been kind of telling me, hey, did you know about the new school that's starting up? It's a hybrid classical Christian school. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is right up my alley. I have to meet these guys and I have to hear their story. So Pastor Kyle, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about your background as a pastor. And I believe you were also the founder or the church planter of Exodus Church. Is that right?
Yeah, Dalena, thank you for having us on and excited to talk with you. So we planted Exodus Church about 7.5 years ago. And I have 3 kids. The oldest is 16, and we had kids young. So from day one, we have been wrestling through what do we do with education for our kids. And we have made the decision by conviction to homeschool our kids. And that conviction comes from a place of truly believing that education and discipleship are one and the same thing. They cannot be separated. And God's word tells us that a fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And just having trying to instill a fully robust worldview in our children to be able to see all of life with God at the center. So every aspect of their education, we want to see the God of truth, goodness, and beauty being at the very center and the source of those things. So we homeschooled our kids. And then when we planted the church, we had a strong conviction from day one that we believe that the church should be involved in education. And we had a vision to plant the church and then also to start a school. So it's taken about 7 years to get there. But the Lord has blessed us with a growing church, a healthy church, and we have the space for it now. So we have about 8 months ago began the process of officially launching the school, which will launch at the end of August this year. And yeah, it's called St. Boniface Academy, and it is a school that we want to see the truth of God's word just embedded into the curriculum, and be able to see these kids grow and enjoy, encourage, and be prepared to advance God's kingdom, whatever they do after they graduate. So when we started the church, we have always had a lot of kids at our church. And so part of advancing this vision, though we hadn't started the school yet, was to really promote and teach on the importance of Christian education. And I'm pretty sure when we started the church, we were the only, and there might have been another family or two that homeschooled, and there was a couple others that had their kids in Christian school and public school and so on. But over the last 7 years, we have seen family after family just become convinced of this God-given call upon the family to see their children grow in the fear and admonition of the Lord, and seeing education as discipleship. So about 4.5 years ago, we started a co-op at our church, and it started with about 15 kids, and then it's grown to 90 something kids that we have in the co-op. And then out of that, we're launching the school. So we'll continue to have the co-op for homeschool families at our church. But we're also starting Boniface at St. Boniface Academy here at the end of August. And yeah, we're just so excited. And we just believe that this is part of the call, to be faithful Christians and to raise our families in the next generation, to be prepared to advance his kingdom and his glory to the ends of the earth.
Wow, I love hearing the origin story there and just the conviction from the very beginning that this is what you knew you were going to be doing long term and working towards that. I didn't realize that you had started with a homeschool co-op there. What's the name of
Yeah.
that of the co-op?
Yeah, it was called Classical Christian Co-op. And
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so it's met here at our location at the church. And like I said, we've been able to see lots of families get involved in it over the years. So it's been a great ministry, a great place to build community with homeschool families, and it's been a blessing. And we pray that it will continue to be a blessing for many
Yeah.
years to come. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And so then obviously within your congregation and there on your board of elders, you also had highly qualified and convicted individuals who also wanted to invest in this. And so Kyle Waters, tell us a little bit about your background in education and your interest. I believe so they approached you and asked you, right, if you would be the head of school here.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm originally from Alabama, and so as I moved up here, I taught in Christian school since 2007, after I got out of the Marine Corps. And so from that time forward, just growing and understanding Christian school. Most of my life, I grew up in private school in Alabama as well. And so uh, seeing how schools integrate biblical truth into the classroom, into every subject, I started growing in that, and then and seeing that at times we need even a more robust understanding of biblical truth. All facts, all truth cannot be known apart from the triune God themselves. And so, yeah, that's kind of my passion for it. The Bible, science, there's nothing off limits. If there is a fact that can be known, we cannot properly know it apart from the triune God. So that's kind of my background, 17 years in Christian education in the Wichita area. And so growing in that and kind of knowing how that integration works and focusing mainly in the humanities side and Bible theology. That's mainly my forte.
That's so great. So let's talk a little bit about what the model is going to look like for St. Boniface. I know we mentioned it is a Christian classical academy, but there's a really unique style there with the schedule. So one of you, I will let maybe Kyle, the head of school, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the schedule is going to look like, and then I'll turn to Pastor Kyle and we'll ask why you think it's significant and important to do this type of a hybrid model.
Okay, so it is St. Boniface is a 3-day model. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and what that does is because it is ultimately the parent's responsibility. We look at education as not just something you add on. It's not just to get a job, but it is discipleship of the children. This is what parents are responsible for. They are responsible for discipling their children. And so with that, the parents do not lose time. The whole schedule and everything and how the work week or the school week goes is not focused in and on the school. That 3-day model helps it, and they can go through all their curriculum, their core curriculum there. And then, yeah, there's homework, but the family is really tied to it. It is equipping parents for discipling their children, and the church should come along in that. And that's the main focus when we look at our schedule, that 3-day model, and from a classical perspective.
Yeah, that's great. So this is my absolute favorite model, the hybrid model, and not only the hybrid model, but the church, like pastor and parent partnership. Those are things that I would love to see more of, not just having a place to send our kids to learn a few days a week that help us, but actually having an individual, another, obviously our pastor who's invested in our children and discipling our children and helping as an outreach of the church and as a part of the ministry to invest in families. So, Pastor Kyle, why do you feel like the hybrid model is important?
Yeah, I do think that ultimately what we see in the Word of God is the responsibility given to fathers and as parents to oversee and take responsibility for the education of their children. Now, that does not mean that they are to do it all by themselves necessarily. However, what tends to happen with education is we like to outsource it, right? To say, I'm not equipped to do this. I don't have the time or the margin to do this. So I'll hand this responsibility over to a public school or whatever it might be. And then it's kind of just a trusting of this institution to take care of the education, which is then also to take care of the discipleship of our children. And I don't believe that that's a biblical model. So we want to be able to provide an opportunity where we can come alongside of parents, partner with parents to see their children educated, discipled in biblical truth that would help build the strength of the family, help offer support to the moms and the dads, but certainly not looking to take that responsibility away from them, but rather support them, strengthen them by partnering with them. So we think it's really a biblical model in a way that the church and the broader biblical Christian community can come around and work with these families to see their kids get a top-notch education, which is super important.
Oh man, it's so great. So you mentioned a couple things, this hybrid model and the pastor-parent partnership. I'm curious, have you heard of Dr. Lisa Dunn in Chula Vista, California? Have you not heard of her yet? Okay.
I've heard the name. That's it.
Okay. Well, you also mentioned that we like to outsource things, and what that can look like, and it can be risky at times. But anyways, she has a model. She has an organization called the Academic Rescue Mission, and she has created the Chula Vista Academy there. It's a university actually, and she started with a K through 12 program and then actually developed into a university. And she's a professor herself. She's an author. Amazing. She is amazing. And I mean, I just love it because so many individuals, like we talked about this before we started recording, but it's like God really is stirring something in the heart of his people, and it's just individuals. And what I really, really love to see, I mean, you hear a lot of like organizations that value more of like this bottom up approach, like it's really a grassroots thing. Well, when you're talking about the Lord and how he works, he doesn't often work through like a church, organization, maybe going through the basic steps of like, well, this is an initiative of the church. We're going to adopt this as a ministry. We're going to take it to our board of elders and maybe vote as a congregation. That happens sometimes. But what I'm actually seeing here in the past couple of years is that there's like a mom at home, a homeschool mom who says, I need this for my kids and I want to serve my community and I see this as a ministry. And so she's just starting, she's just starting with or without the support of her church, but she is walking in faithful obedience to what the Lord's asking. And then we have maybe these gifted educators who might be in the public school system and God's calling them out and saying, no, I have something else for you. You can use your gifts in this way. And then another exciting thing that I see is that there are even like people who are really gifted with business management, business skills, and they know how to operate, and start a company or whatever. And they're even coming forward and saying, hey, I hear that these people are starting some schools. I would really like to, provide services and consultations and things like that. I have friends who are software developers and they're putting forth
all of their gifts and abilities into creating a learning management system that is specific for these Christian micro schools, not just Christian micro schools, but they're believers themselves. And so they're like, we want to see the growth of this movement, and we know what it's going to take for this, so we're developing something for them. So it's just the Lord is stirring in the heart of individuals, like this professor out in California, and the software developers and the business management people and all of it. And so then it takes pastors with vision, and it takes gifted educators, with conviction to come together. And then he's also stirring in the hearts of parents who are saying, we need to do something about this. We need to look for and find some options. So I'm really encouraged to hear about what's happening there. Tell me a little bit about the vision and kind of long-term or big picture. What do you see happening here with St. Boniface?
Well, I think, long term, the goal, we're not looking to just be this, 1,100 student school. The goal of St. Boniface is to focus on discipleship, and partner with parents for discipleship, because all education is discipleship. And the goal for that is to be generational, because some kids, they're gifted and they're wired, and how the Lord's wired every kid. And that's the great thing about the classical education, is that it actually builds toward the giftings of each individual. And so some kids may go off they may do a tech school, they may work with their hands, they may go off to college, and it builds that. And so every generation, and how the Lord gifted each individual, will be able to build on these skills, because education is formation. It's not just information. I think that's a C.S. Lewis quote. And so that's the main point. We're discipling parents, and as the Lord provides, we will grow. We will and try to partner with parents the best way we can. And for each individual, and even struggling learners, we're working with different things to try to help those who have different learning differences as well. And so we'll hope to build that in there, because our most valuable thing in our world is our children, right? They're going to last more a house or even our own personal education. Our children are going to last for eternity. And they're going to have children and their children's children. And so we want to have something that has a generational staying power, that continues to disciple generation after generation in a robust biblical worldview and biblical education.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So you will have, tell me what it looks like to be multi-generational for you.
Well, and that's the thing. We were open to Exodus, but also the wider community as well. We want to partner with other churches as well that are like-minded. We hold to a certain statement of faith, but we want to be able to partner with other churches as well, and parents, so that we can build that generational. Because I think it's great to see. For me, I've been teaching. I have former students that have applied to teach at St. Boniface, or at least, hey, ask me a question. Hey, maybe I'll keep that in mind in the future. Or, hey, should I send my kids? Are they ready for the classical education? And well, I send my kids there. And then looking in the future, not only will they send their children to St. Boniface, but also, could they teach? Could they help? Could it be a homeschool mom or a TA, or helping with lunchtime or whatever? We want to get the community with Exodus and the church and the Christian community also, to build that generational model that we see that, well, we've repeated it multiple times, education is discipleship. You can't separate. We can't compartmentalize that. So if you want education, if you're doing like we're supposed to do, and especially it's called for fathers to discipline their children, the paideia of the Lord, that is a full and complete enculturation of the child, of the individual, and the family, and how that builds staying power, that builds a actual culture. not only within Boniface, but in the wider church community, and Christian community. So hope
Yeah,
I answered your question.
definitely. Well, Pastor Kyle, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it hasn't been a secret, even within academics, higher academics as well, that the current model and the trajectory that academics are going is going, it's going in the wrong direction. It's a project that is failing before our eyes. And, you know, with all of the hardships that came for many with COVID and the whole process that we walked through with that, I think what that did in some ways was to kind of peel the lid off of the reality of what's going on in education. And I think one thing that we want to instill in the students and the families is to realize like a path forward to a flourishing life, a vibrant life, a life that matters, of impact, of influence, of and you name it, right? Whatever that might be that these students are being called to and prepared for, there is more than one track to get there. So this model of just kind of going through your K through 12 and then getting into hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans in order to go and get a degree that realistically has such a low value in the marketplace right now, that there are other paths to be taken. And I think that's part of the generational piece too, is to understand we want to build and equip and help train these students to be able to go into the world and be able to make a difference in the most effective way possible. And so we've already been discussing with some different business leaders about putting together internships for our students. We want to get entrepreneurs together to help these students start businesses. We want to be able to really assess the students and help them and give them counsel and wisdom on if further education, formal education, is the right path for them. Because of course, for some, you have to go on and get a bachelor's, master's, or a doctorate degree in order to practice in the field that you're called to. But not everybody needs to go down that path. And I think what that will do is begin to open up people's minds to other options, to be able to see a graduate from school to be equipped and ready to make a difference in the world, and be able to see that build and a culture formed from that, which will have generational effects.
Right.
Because you said it a couple times already that there's a stirring, there's something happening within our culture around education. And I think we need leaders, and we need schools, we need voices to be able to speak to these other options, and options that I think will have a greater impact on the student, and thus a greater impact on our country and on our culture. And I think it's powerful and it's exciting, and we're here for it, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Yes. And again, with the generational impact there's just so much potential and possibility moving forward, because it does seem like there has been this shift, and something is changing, and something is stirring. And I do believe that we will never go back to the way things used to be. I do believe that with these opportunities and the diversity of school models that we're seeing now, it's like, okay, I think that families want these options. We want flexibility. We want to be able to kind of cater and curate the educational experience for our own kids, and that can happen now. We've got online courses available. We've got hybrid models, and just working with tutors and coming together in small groups or micro schools or whatever it's going to look like. So again, of course, with the Heartland Education Reformation Organization, we very much believe that there is a reformation that's happening in education. And I'm excited because I'm seeing it right here in Kansas, and again, I believe there's significance in that we are right in the geographic center of the U.S. And God is stirring something in the heart of America, and I'm so encouraged to see it. I think that there's amazing possibilities for families. There's hope on the horizon, and things are looking bright. And I'm so encouraged to hear about both of you and the partnership that you have between the church and the school. If you have any other final words of encouragement, anyone who might be considering launching a Christian school or a church, maybe hosting a Christian school, if you'd like to just speak to that for a minute here before we end.
Yes, if anyone's actually considering it or reach out, there are so many resources. You yourself are one, but there's other resources both in just how to do it, how to fund it. There, reach out and find and just get started, and the ball will just start rolling. There's a lot of things to work to, because that, as a church, as a Christian church, that's what we are called to. We are called to disciple our children, and education is discipleship. And if we don't, we are being disobedient to Christ. And so I think that's what we're seeing. We don't see this bifurcation of education and raising our children, and discipling our children. Now we're starting to see it in how they're being discipled. And so they're either being discipled and educated toward truth or toward error.
Right. That's good. Pastor Kyle?
Yeah, I think there's just a call for people to have the courage to take the next step with this. You know, we are to bring all things to the Lord in prayer, and we are also to hear what God says in His Word to us. And the decision to give your children a Christian education is not one that you have to wait for an answer from the Lord. He's already given it to us in His Word. So move forward with courage and confidence that the Lord is calling you to an education for your children that is thoroughly and robustly biblical, and have the courage and be willing to take the risk to do that. And in doing so, it will be a blessing for your children and your children's children, and down the line to 1,000 generations. I mean, this is such a fascinating moment in time that we get to be a part of. And I want to encourage everybody who listens to this to take the jump, right? And God is faithful. He'll help you build the parachute on your way down. But this is God's call for His people, and
Yes.
I think we need to have the courage and the boldness to believe Him and His promises, and follow Him faithfully.
So great. So good. Well, thank you for that encouragement. Thank you both for your obedience to the Lord and your faithfulness in doing what He's called you to do. I know it's not always easy. It won't always be pretty, but you're starting and you're doing it, and you're just following what God's called you to do. So I appreciate that. What a blessing it will be in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dalena.
Yes. Okay. And thank you to our listeners. If you would like to get in touch, so Kyle, tell me the website for St. Boniface.
St. Boniface Academy is just, you can go in, you can find us on Google, or you go to the Exodus Church and you can go to ministries and you can find us that way, or you can just type in stbonifaceacademy.org, and you can find us there. My direct email, you can look at information at stboniface.org, and we can set you up any information there, as well as kwaters at stbonifaceacademy.org.
Okay, perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for joining us for another episode of Wise and Otherwise.